Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to Tea Time with Dr. Georgiou. I have a very Mr. Rogers vibe going right now with my cardigan on, but honestly, I was like, let's get cozy. So, do what you need to do right now to get cozy. Go get you a cup of tea. I added lemon juice and cinnamon to mine. I love just heating up water on the kettle and adding fresh ginger, cinnamon, and lemon. So you guys try it. Let me know what you think. Got my fireplace going. Definitely my dogs are going to be barking. I'm prepared with the spray bottle. Well, Diamond, she's still sleeping. I need to show y'all. Diamond! Yeah, she's like, whatever, guys. I don't have time to deal with y'all. So I want to go over part 175 with you guys today. So you're going to need your FAR FC book. Something has happened to mine and it's gotten wet. But it's all good. So I've also posted this PowerPoint on D2L in case you want to print it out or I don't know, whatever you need, it is there. So let's go to 49 CFR part 175. First of all, remind me, what is CFR again? Code of Federal Regulations. This is the second one we've done in Title 49. The first one we did was NTSB Part 830, and then this is the last one we'll do in this class under Title 49, which is, remember, Title 49 covers transportation. So if you look on page 489 in your FC book, the title is Hazardous Materials Carriage by Aircraft. So for the test, when I ask you your questions, what does it cover, you can just put HAZMAT. Okay, let's go over the basics. This is a really short section, guys. It's only 5-6 pages long, but I want to go over some of the highlights with you. So first, go to 175.1 Part A. Let's read applicability. It says this part prescribes requirements that apply to the transportation of hazardous materials in commerce aboard, including attached to or suspended from aircraft. The requirements in this part are in addition to other requirements contained in blah, blah, blah. Now, what I want you to see is go to Part B. Part B says this part applies to the offering, acceptance, and transportation of hazardous materials. Next sentence, this subchapter applies to any person who performs, attempts to perform, or is required to perform any function to this subchapter, including, and it's got a 1 and 2. 1, air carriers, which is going to be UPS, FedEx, United, Delta, SkyWest, ExpressJet. It's the airlines and cargo. Air carriers, indirect air carriers, freight forwarders, and their flight and non-flight employees, agents, subsidiary and contract personnel, including cargo, passenger, and baggage, acceptance, handling, loading, and unloading personnel. What I wanted you guys to see there is that includes anyone, not just cargo carriers. Anybody that's carrying cargo on board their aircraft, hazardous material, applies to them. And then number 2, I wanted you guys to see it also applies to passengers. So you see it says air passengers that carry any hazardous material on their person, which means their carry-on, or in their checked baggage. So 175 applies to anyone and everyone that's carrying hazardous material as like in their cargo compartments, as well as passengers that are carrying it on board the aircraft. 175.1 Charlie says this part does not apply to aircraft of the United States registry under lease to and operated by foreign nationals outside the United States if 1, hazardous materials forbidden aboard aircraft by 172.101 of this chapter are not carried on the aircraft, and 2, other hazardous materials are carried in accordance with the regulations of the state nation of the aircraft operator. I regret reading that to you. I feel like we've just lost a few seconds of our life. That was a waste. Ignore that part. Moving on. Okay, let's see. What have I skipped to? I want you guys to go to 175.8, and I did want you to see there are exceptions for operator equipment and items for replacement. And then 175.10 talks about exceptions for passengers and crew members. So first, let's go to 175.8. I just want you guys to see there are some things that are considered hazardous, but they're not categorized as hazardous material because there is a different process for that. So, for example, A says this subchapter does not apply to aviation fuel and oil in tanks because it's like these are things we just need for the operation. Number 2, hazardous materials are required for the airworthiness. 3, I do want you guys to know what COMAT stands for because you might see that in your future. COMAT is company material. So it says items of replacement, company material for hazardous material described in paragraph A2. And the list goes on, but I wanted, like the B4 doesn't apply to oxygen, used for medical use by passenger, dry ice, tire assembly. So even though these may be hazardous, especially if they, especially the fact a lot of them are flammable, they are not categorized as HAZMAT. Exceptions for passengers, there's a long list here, guys. You guys can read through it. It's pretty straightforward. But what I want you guys to know is this list is not always the current climate based on our security. So TSA, Transportation Security Administration, was created just a few days after the attacks of 9/11. If they prohibit an item, that is that supersedes this regulation. So, for example, you look under 175.10, talks about A1, non-radioactive medicinal and toilet articles for personal use, including aerosols. You youngsters, that was hairspray. I guess they still have hairspray. I just feel like nobody uses it anymore. If you look under number 2, 1 packet of safety matches or a lighter. But what I'm, if we're in a climate where they think that's not good and we're higher risk of a security risk, they can say that's not permitted. Implanted medical devices, so that's good to know, such as a heart pacemaker containing class 7 material. Make a note, I want you guys to know class 7 is radioactive. Alcohol beverages, not more than 24% alcohol by volume. Anyway, the list goes on. But what I wanted to take, the list is pretty long actually. It's like half the regs. You see that? 1, 2, 3 pages or more. I wanted to actually click on this TSA website here. I want you guys to kind of play around with this website. If your family's anything like mine, anytime they travel, which we won't be traveling for a while probably, but they ask me a million questions like I know all of it. So go to this website, Transportation Security Administration, TSA. They work underneath the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. What can I bring? It gives you a list. So they tell you if you can carry it on board, and they tell you can check it in. And these are just some really unique things I always like to go over in class, like airbrush makeup machine. Guys, what is that? And how do I get one? Does it do my own makeup? I feel like it just airbrushes it on. But anyway, I can have that in my bag apparently, checked and carry on. Let's see. Ammunition. We cannot carry it on the aircraft, but with special instructions, you can carry it or check it in your bag. And there's guidelines for that on how to pack it, what's approved, how to let the counter know, the airline counter ahead of time. Antlers. Anyway, check out some of these weird ones. Let's see. Let's go to miscellaneous. Artificial skeleton bones. Okay, so guys, you can, I know a lot of us have those. We can carry them on board the aircraft. Balloons. Oh, they can't be inflated. That's sad. No birthday balloons. They have to be not inflated. Belts, clothes, and shoes. Hallelujah. We can still wear our clothes. I mean, they probably put this on here, guys, because people ask the question. Let's be real. Bobby pins, that's a good thing. I've got bobby pins on me all the time, even when I don't know it. Stuck in my hair. You ladies and men with longer hair understand that. Some other weird things. Body armor. We might be needing that in this COVID pandemic. Bread machine. That's twice a day. People keep talking about bread on Facebook too, making me hungry. Anyway, you guys get the gist. This is the website you would go to if you're trying to figure out what you can and can't bring. Sorry, I didn't know which way to go on that. Okay, I want you guys to know this for the test. So we've got 175.20. It says an air carrier, which is an airline, right, or cargo airline carrier, may not transport a hazardous material by aircraft unless each of its HAZMAT employees involved in that transportation is trained as required by subpart H of part 172 of this subchapter. In addition, air carriers must comply with all applicable hazardous materials training requirements in part 121 and 135. So what I want you to know here, guys, is everybody that is considered a HAZMAT employee, which would include dispatchers and pilots. That's kind of, for our class. You do have to go through HAZMAT training. It's a once-a-year training for 8 hours. And they go over things like what I have on here, what these different, because you'll see them on your, you'll get this information prior to departure. If you have any HAZMAT on your airplane, and you would need to know, how to read the basic information on it. What the policies are and everything like that is part of the HAZMAT training once a year. 175.25A talks about notification at air passenger facilities of HAZMAT restrictions. A talks about notices of requirements, ticket purchase, check-in, and signage. So you may have seen this before. Like if you go to the ticket counter, it's underneath the ticket counter. If not, whenever you buy your tickets online, through Travelocity or iFly Southwest or whatever, you actually have to click on a statement that says that you are not carrying any hazardous material on board the aircraft. It's a long statement. And when you click it, it's your signature. So you may not have even noticed it before. So now that I said it, pay attention the next time you see that or fly. Because you are responsible to not bring anything illegal on board the aircraft. You can't claim you didn't know, right? That's not ever an excuse. Let me move this down because I realize you can't see. How about there? Boom. Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. The hair is wand. Okay. 75.25. Oh, here's what I wanted to tell you guys. Where's it at? Oh, go to paragraph A1. A1. Federal law forbids the carriage of hazardous materials aboard aircraft in your luggage or on your person. A violation can result in 5 years imprisonment and penalties of $250,000 or more. That's a lot. So what is the consequence of bringing on board hazardous material? Up to results in 5 years in prison and or $250,000 or more. A fine. Serious business there. Okay, 175.30. Breezing right along. Part A says no person may accept a hazardous material for transportation aboard an aircraft unless the operator ensures the hazardous material, 1, is authorized and is within the quantity limitation. So just because you can have it doesn't mean you can have a large amount of it, right? So you have to make sure, 1, it's authorized, 2, that the quantity is permissible. Number 2, I want you guys to highlight this as well. I want you to highlight 1, 2, and 3. And 4, highlight A1 through 4. 2 is described and certified on a shipping paper. Highlight shipping paper. Prepared in duplicate, which means there are 2 of them, right? We'll talk later. But 1, it goes to the pilot, and the other goes on the package. So I do want you guys to know that. Number 3, it's marked and labeled in accordance with the regulations. And then 4, if it is supposed to be only on cargo, it is labeled cargo aircraft only. What is this link that I wanted? I think I want you to watch this later on your own. Let me see. Yes, this one just talks about hazardous materials, labels, and dangerous goods. Don't worry about it unless you get bored, which I feel like you guys are a lot now. Okay, let's go to this. 175.31. Reports of discrepancies. Each person who discovers a discrepancy as defined in paragraph Bravo of this section relative to the shipment of hazardous material following its acceptance for transportation shall, what's the word shall mean? Must, right? shall, as soon as practicable, notify the nearest FAA regional or field security office by telephone or electronically, and shall provide the following information. And then they just give the information there. The question on test is going to ask if there is a discrepancy on a package or hazardous material. What's the process? And it is to notify the nearest FAA office. That's the process. Pretty straightforward, right? This is a really easy regulation. Like Part 175 is really straightforward and, to be honest, quite boring. Okay, this one I want you to highlight and know for the test, 175.33. This is probably one of the more important parts of the regs for my pilots and dispatchers. So it says, and do you guys see that the black vertical bars, right, alongside the page? What was that again? What did that mean? It means there's a change, right? A revision, addition, something like that. Okay, A says, when a hazardous material subject to the provisions of this subchapter is carried in an aircraft, the operator of the aircraft must provide the pilot in command and the flight dispatcher. That wasn't there last year. That's what's new. And the flight dispatcher or other ground support personnel with responsibilities for operational control of the aircraft, with highlight accurate and legible written information as early as practicable before departure of the aircraft, but in no case later than when the aircraft moves under its own power. So what has to happen if there's hazardous material on board the aircraft? Anybody that has a say in operational control, which we know is at least the captain and the dispatcher, they have to be given notification. They have to be given it as soon as possible, but definitely at least when? Before departure. Has to be in a shipping paper. Okay, shh. You guys don't like this rig? Quiet. I think that's all I wanted you to know from that part, other than if you go down to paragraph 6, just a reminder, I wanted you to know that class 7 materials are radioactive materials. So guys, this is really important that the pilot's dispatcher know what's going on their plane. This is not something to mess around with. This is labeled hazardous material for a very serious reason. And we need to know what's going on, what's on there, the quantity, everything like that. And I have up here, there was an accident that occurred I want you to know about. I've talked, I think, before in class about how regulations, some of them are written in blood, and that means there's been an accident, something tragic happened, a lot of people died, and then there were regulations implemented after that. So this is one example. I want you guys to write down and look up ValueJet Flight 592. And I want us to actually watch a quick video together on it. And it's kind of poor quality, but let's do it.
1 hour to disaster. A SaberTech driver pulls up at gate G2 at Miami International Airport with ValueJet cargo for flight 592. Inside the boxes are 144 out-of-date oxygen generators loosely packed. A ramp agent places them around a large airplane tire. The pilots are unaware that they have a dangerous load on board. 30 minutes to go. As the plane taxis to the runway, the loose packing and unsecured cargo jolt one of the generators into action. It begins to heat up. 11 minutes to disaster. The plane taxis to its takeoff position. In the hold, the surface of the metal generator gets hotter and hotter. Soon the heat ignites the cardboard box and bubble wrap, and the blaze begins. 10 minutes to disaster. Flight 592 takes off from Miami International. Even though the hold is airtight, the fire is now blazing, sustained by the oxygen produced by the generators. 3.5 minutes to go.
What is that?
The sound heard by the crew is one of the tires in the hold bursting, just as it did in the lab test. Unknown to the pilots, the fire begins to eat away at the systems on board.
We got some kind of electrical problem.
The battery charge is kicking in.
We're losing everything.
The battery charger can't help the stricken jet as the fire is consuming everything in its path, including the control cables that run to the rear of the plane. Captain Kubek begins to lose control of the aircraft. Temperatures in the hold have now reached more than 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. In the cabin, passengers are becoming desperate as they choke on the toxic fumes. Flight attendant Jennifer Stearns rushes into the cockpit, but the pilots refuse to drop the masks, knowing that oxygen would only make the fire worse. 1 minute from disaster. The cabin floor burns and begins to cave in. 7 seconds to disaster. Now, no one is in control of the plane. The crew is probably unconscious, overcome by toxic fumes given off by the aircraft's interior fittings. Seconds later, Flight 592 nosedives into the Florida Everglades at 500 miles per hour.
I know. Bad story ending. Bad story there. So what were some things that went wrong, guys? 1, the pilots were unaware what was in their cargo. 2, they stowed it in front. Hattie B. Hattie. Shh. You know what? They're not as well behaved as you guys, by the way. At least that one isn't. They stored it improperly. Hattie, come here now. Come here. Come here. Come here. For the love of... Thank you. Goodness gracious. Okay, sorry, guys. So 1, pilots were unaware. 2, stored improperly or stowed improperly. And they were expired generators. Probably more that I forgot now, too. But several things went wrong. Super tragic accident. There's really actually nothing the pilots could have done. You can review this link on your own if you want. But this one I want to talk about, the fact that after this accident, they actually made pretty quick, they came out with changes. So here, let's make it bigger. Hattie, you really need to be quiet while I'm teaching. Shush. Says the federal, this was in 1998, says the FAA today issued a final rule requiring fire detection and suppression systems in aircraft cargo compartments. See, for that accident, that was not the case. Cargo compartments did not have this. Because you were probably thinking, why didn't they just put it out? Well, that's why. So this was a reactive. But now every aircraft, it said approximately 300 all cargo aircraft will be required to have detection systems. This came out pretty fast after the accident. So now basically every aircraft has to have cargo fire detection and suppression system. I was just going to talk to you a little bit about Boeing's. Because, you know, they actually carry live, I'm against it, but live animals in the cargo compartment. And so they have to have, one, it has to be pressurized, but also there has to be detection and suppression. So what's the difference? Detection is like our smoke detectors in our house. Suppression is like on campus, if we had a fire that had the water sprinklers would go off. So for Boeing, their fire detection with smoke detectors, it took about 5 minutes, but now it's under about 60 seconds, and they'll receive both oral and visual warnings. So oral means like this, something will make a sound letting you know, as well as lights will be dinging. And it's based on photoelectric sensing. So if there is any smoke in the cargo bins, whether it's forward or aft, it'll interfere with those light beams and it'll trigger the system. When it does that, it shuts down airflow to the cargo compartment, and then whatever type of suppression system they have, fire extinguishing agent is going to be released. So there's a lot of HAZMAT violations that occur, and I have this website here for you just to search the news for the FAA, but I already pulled up a few for us, or at least I found one, I think. Here, I just went under press releases, and these are all, some of them are, I mean, you may be interested to play around with them. but looking for hazardous material. Let's see what's going on here. This was one, well, there was a much bigger one I saw a second ago. $160,500 fine, July 18th, 2018. Let's see. So proposed $160,005 penalty against this company of Hong Kong for allegedly violating the regulations. It says that they knowingly offered a shipment of 30 lithium-ion batteries to UPS for shipment by air from Hong Kong to the company's service facilities in Louisville, Kentucky. So here's the thing, guys. Here's everyone that can get in trouble. If anyone attempts to ship something improperly or illegal, they get in trouble. And then the shipping facilities like UPS and FedEx, if they receive them and ship them, they get in trouble also. And then same for passengers. I've seen people get in trouble for trying to ship paint thinner and all kinds of weird things if you go through here. What's this one? No, thank you. I'm teaching. $78,000 against Amazon. This was in 2016. What were they doing? They offered Federal Express 2 cardboard boxes containing corrosive rust stain preventer. So anyway, and they give them 30 days to respond to the proposal. But yeah, this might be something interesting to look around to see the different violations. I feel like we've covered the highlights of 175, so let me go over really what I wanted you to gather from it. One, Part 175 falls under Title 49, which is transportation regulations. Dispatchers, pilots, anyone involved in HAZMAT has to go through training once a year. That's for compliance. They have initial training and they have once a year training. There are exceptions for what can be carried on board the aircraft by passengers, as well as different items and equipment for airplanes. But if you want to know what you're permitted to carry, hazardous materials and such items would be on the TSA website. Look under prohibited list. The pilot and dispatcher have to be given notification prior to departure as soon as possible for what's being shipped, the quantity, how it's shipped, and everything like that, as soon as possible. And then the other thing, guys, is about reporting discrepancies. So if there is a leak or the container is damaged, obviously that's going to be a discrepancy. This is hazardous material. So we're kind of having to trust people on the ground to do their job properly on that, because we don't inspect the packages, the dispatchers or the pilots, right? I mean, the cargo bins or whatever are already loaded. But if they notice something wrong, leaking, damage, something's loaded improperly, then they would report that to the FAA, right? The local FAA office. And then Class 7 is radioactive material. If you guys have any questions, you know I'm available to answer them. And have a great day. I hope you enjoyed Tea Time with Dr. G for 49 CFR Part 175. The test on Friday will cover airspace, which we did in class. That was Part 71 and Chapter 3 of your AIM. We covered, several classes of Part 91 already, and then I did another YouTube video on 91, and then this one. These are all going to be on test number 2. All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great afternoon.